most secure information on the planet with this interactive game. I am your host, Lockdown. First, I will explain to you how this game works. The goal of this game is to download as many protected files as possible before you're counter-hacked. There are obstacles in the form of viruses that will immediately result in your immediate counter-hacking. In order to avoid them, you must inspect them for the keyword virus before downloading them. Anything without the word virus is free to download. You will be battling yourself as well, fledgling, by trying to beat your own high score. Now we set you up a simple government secret to download, but 10 seconds into the game you will start to get brand new files to download, as well as new viruses, so make sure to read carefully. Now let me tell you how it works. The core of this game is in the ES6 class code that stores the text for each code block we can download and a boolean for determining whether it will be a virus or not. After that, it's all in the main JavaScript file, where we start by initializing all of the game variables from the beginning to prevent scope issues moving forward. Then we create all of the pixie labels and scenes and call the start game function. The start game function calls a bunch of other functions to start creating all the different mechanics of the game. In order to keep this brief, yet informative, I will just go over all the starting functions and what tasks they accomplish, not the specific functions that do those tasks. The createWords function loops through an array and populates it with code objects to contain the randomly generated text for the codes and the boolean values. The gameLoop function displays all of the active game information to the app screen and starts the timer. The isScore function increments the score if a non-virus code is clicked, and ends the game if a virus is clicked. It also secretly increases the difficulty when the score surpasses 1,000 in case someone is impossibly fast. The timer function decrements the timer, and then calls itself with the setTimeout function in order to decrement every second. It also ends the game when the time runs out. And last but not least, the endgame function displays the game over scene and adds your ending score and your high score. Some parts of the game that I'm really proud of are the timer and the random text generation. The random text generation was the first task I set out to achieve when playing the game, because without it, the game would lose a lot of its difficulty because you could start recognizing patterns in the random text before the keywords, and that would lead to the game being super easy. I'm not even 100% sure why it works the way it does myself, but it does, so I don't question it. And even though the random text was something that was definitely more daunting, I am more proud of the timer solely because of how simplistic I was able to make that solution. I had looked online for solutions and all of them included the date object, and I was having trouble wrapping my head around it. Then I found the setTimeout function and it worked. Originally I just a 30-second setTimeout function at the start of the game with no visible timer, but I didn't want the timer section to feel cheap because there was no way to know how much time was left. So I thought, what would happen if I nested setTimeout functions, and the result was kinda awful. Because the timer start function had to be in the game loop, which is recalled frequently whenever the player needs to generate new code, the setTimeout function would call itself multiple times a second. I solved this by creating a separate function with a boolean for starting the timer itself. If the timer had already been called from the game loop, it could no longer be called that way again. This allowed me to call setTimeout in a loop and have it function perfectly. One of the biggest actual problems I had that I wasn't able to fix until the very end was the game over screen. Its score display would overwrite itself because the text objects were created at the very end of the code, in the very last function, which made it out of scope for every other function. This is what led to me declaring every single variable at the beginning of the code in order to get rid of any scope issue. I wanted to find a cleaner fix, but I couldn't in time. The other big problems were animating text and the cursor object, both of which I could not accomplish in time. For external sources, I used freesound.org. I only used 2 sound effects, but both of them said that they were fine with no credit. Overall, I really enjoyed this project and I'm proud of what I was able to make in such a short amount of time.